from 6 years old. All I wanted was to be famous.
A Lifetime 2-night documentary event.
Showtime.
Executive produced by Wendy Williams.
The boss is walking, everybody.
Nobody can do it like Wendy. No one.
People love Wendy.
You are a star.
She was in her living room every single day for 12 years.
Yep, I guess that'll do.
And that's what people responded to, her authenticity. And then at the peak of her career, she was gone.
Are we ready?
Yeah, waiting on you.
All right, and away we go.
Love you, Wendy.
All I know is how to be famous. I really want to be back on television.
You're gonna be back on TV. That's easy.
My mom has done a great job making it seem like everything is okay always.
Wendy, make sure you look here. 1, 2, 3.
But in reality, there's something wrong going on.
Did you see a neurologist?
To find out if I'm crazy? Oh my God, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. I have to sit down again.
She was put in front of a judge and given a guardian. That was when they took her away from us.
I have no money, and I'm gonna tell you something. If it happens to me, it could happen to you.
As her family, we were all sitting on the sidelines watching, and she was crying out for help.
Did you drink this whole thing today?
Keep it there.
Okay.
Keep it there.
My mom, she always talks about how she wants to work. But I feel as though she's worked enough.
She has people around who are yes people and allowing this to continue.
This is all too much. Go! Drive! I have no idea where we are. This doesn't look like anything familiar.
I think she's losing memory. Have you guys noticed that?
How dare him? I control men. I weigh 138.
Anybody could look at her and tell this is not just alcohol. There's something more going on.
I miss my family.
I'll be there.
No matter how many times somebody may fall down, you gotta lift them back up.
We all make choices in life. We all go through our challenges. She's still a person.
How you doing?
That's my sister. There have been random people around you,
Stealing money from me.
getting money, whatever the case may be.
Enough.
Can you tell me where your sister is?
No, I don't know the exact location of where she is.
I feel like the guardian has not done a good job of protecting my mom.
My life. My life.
Right now, she's weak and vulnerable, and she needs to be around people who aren't going to take advantage of that.
I have no friends.
You know how many people come out to support you? You know how many people love you?
No, I don't.
Everything is gonna be good.
I know.
I think that the guardianship system is broken. We are her family, and you tell me that I'm not capable of taking care of my sister. What would you do? What should I do?
I love being famous. But family is everything. So good to see you again, Dad.
It's good to see you, babe.
Everything.
Where is Wendy Williams? A 2-night documentary event premieres Saturday, February 24th at 8.
Hey everybody, it's Sherry
And Bria.
and welcome back to another episode of Alleged Actually podcast. Now, tonight is Sunday, so this is not our normal Saturday for Pop Culture Saturday, but we decided to extend the day so we could do a little more research to bring you guys the tea on Miss Wendy Williams. Now, you must be living under a rock if you have not seen the trailer that's been going all over the internet and the television regarding Lifetime's 2-part docuseries that will be airing the 24th and 25th of February, entitled Where is Wendy Williams? Y'all, this trailer has sent the internet a buzz. All of our fellow YouTubers, bloggers, the magazines are covering it. It's not painting Miss Wendy in the best light. I don't know what the intent was, but we decided to take a deeper look into her inner circle, those that are around her. Who are the key players that have, I won't say ultimately have brought her to this, because I think it's a combination of things. But I do think that it is apparent that she has some people in her corner that maybe did not have her best interest at heart. And so Alleged actually decided to do a little deep dive into those folks and to give some insight into some of the key players that have been around Wendy, basically during her fall from grace. Many of you guys know Wendy started her career back in radio. She was born in 1964. She will turn 60 this year. She had a relatively popular radio show, The Wendy Williams Experience. And the popularity of that show helped leverage her to, in 2008, get her daytime talk show, The Wendy Williams Show. And basically, you know, her career has been, at best, someone that did exploiting journalism. She is known to be somewhat of a shock jock. She has had a plethora of beefs and I would say less than favorable relationships with a lot of musicians, actors, actresses back in the 90s up and throughout her radio career, where she took more of a exploitive type look into their lives. And she was really not afraid to bring rumors out there. Like I said, very shock jock type in her delivery. And, you know, she really hurt some folks. And there are a lot of people that say that Wendy, in her heyday, those that, you know, followed her career, particularly while she was in radio and even on her show, she really did not hold back. She did not pull any punches. But a lot of people say that what we are witnessing is basically, you know, a little bit of reaping what you sow, karma, and that law that my daughter is going to tell you about, Bria will be explaining to you all.
Yes, law of reciprocity.
Yes, that law. You know, when we start thinking of who's been in her life that would have had the most influence in her state of unwellness, I don't think we can start with anyone that's had more influence in that area than Mr. Kelvin, aka Kevin Hunter. Bria, what do you have to say on Mr. Hunter, please?
Okay, so a little background about, you know, when they met, how they met. They met in 1994. So that Kevin was born in 72. That put him at 22 and Wendy at 29 when they met. She was a radio personality hosting a skating party for kids, and he was a party promoter. And so they bonded over that. And growing up, people said that he was always mesmerized by urban culture, by the glitz and glam of everything. And he wanted to be on the scene and behind the scenes, pretty much. And so I think that even at 22, when he met her, he saw what it could potentially blossom into and was like, I want it. And so a little bit more about their background. They dated, I think, maybe a couple months after they started dating. Wendy became pregnant. She suffered a miscarriage. And then years later, in 97, she gave birth to stillborn. And so she's had a lot of psychological damage already because of that. And no, he doesn't cause it, but we move on into 2000 when she finally gives birth to her first son, Kevin Jr. And a month later, she admits that she's caught him cheating. And she says that, like, while she's admitting this, she says that she recounts that during her entire pregnancy, she was on bed rest because it was a high risk. She was a little bit older at the time, and that was doctor's orders. And so she recalled Kevin cheating kind of throughout their entire, you know, well, even before like the media press and everything came out, he's been cheating on her like the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but, you know, she, up until, you know, we'll get into the other key characters, as you know, that the mistress became pregnant, and we'll get into Sharina later. But she really wanted to keep her family unit intact. as long as the family structure wouldn't break, she said, look, I know you got like a lustful demon in you or whatever, do you, but as long as this stays good, we're good. So discussion around that, do you think that this was low self-esteem, or do you think that she genuinely just wanted to keep her family unit intact and didn't just loved him, I guess that, I don't know, I guess either way you look at it, it's going to be low self-esteem. So, but I don't know, I just feel like infidelity hurts no matter like what they say, because you're always going to wonder why you weren't enough. And especially dealing with all of that stuff before, I mean, I don't know, it just, but we'll continue on to talk about the other key players, because the next key player I want to talk about is Charlemagne. He's he bridges the gap between Kevin and Sharina. So
that's true. Well, I have a few things to say regarding Wendy and Kevin's relationship. Wendy has been very clear that when she met Kevin, Kevin represented to her protection. Kevin was her person. She had failed relationships prior to. I do think self-esteem certainly played a part. She's always talked about being a heavier child. She struggled with weight. Even I know that it was discussed in her Lifetime docuseries prior to that, the Wendy Williams Experience, where she did, and it was also in the movie she did. She also had a biopic type movie that came out that she delved into her childhood, where she struggled with weight, and with her mom kind of staying on her about her weight and her multiple attempts to keep her weight down, whether it be not eating or laxatives, things of that sort. And so by the time she got into radio, which was her dream, she always wanted to be famous. And she states that in the trailer that we share with you guys regarding the Lifetime docuseries coming up in February. By the time that she met Kevin, Kevin was from Brooklyn, New York. He was popping in them streets, and he just represented to her protection. She has stories of her getting into it with some notable bad boy girl group that were waiting for her outside the radio station to jump her. Kevin was right there to let her know they were out there, to usher her into the car and whisk her away. I think that she felt home with Kevin, and she trusted him, though she couldn't trust him with fidelity. I think in business, she did trust him. And so, a lot of people say, well, Wendy was smart, why did she allow? But she has admitted that she certainly has been aware of the infidelity. I don't know that she knew to what degree he was going, particularly with spending her money, taking care of said next key player, well, that we'll get to after we talk about Charlemagne. But Bria, I agree. I believe that she felt like as long as her unit wasn't broken, or as long as they didn't come back to, around her front door, where that she would have to defend it, where it would affect her brand, where, she turned a blind eye. And I think that that's not a secret. She's admitted that in her interviews and on her show. And so we look at Kevin helped her build, helped her pursue her dreams. He was also a producer on the Wendy Williams show. He had the producer credit on the Wendy Williams Experience, and also Queen of Media, which was a project she did in 2011. And she did the Wendy Williams project in 2013. Of course, the Wendy Williams show in 2008. So yeah, it wasn't really And I guess we'll get into that when we get into Sharina. So I won't go into the methods she went into discovering the levels that he went to for infidelity. But yeah, I truly believe that. And I know that to be true because even after everything was out and she still kept Kevin on for a while, which was shocking. Mm-hmm. But I really think that they had not only the family unit, but the business was solid too. Yes. He did a lot for her in that time. A lot to her, but he did a lot for her in her,
Right.
So, all right, let's move on into Charlemagne so that we can get on into Miss Thing.
Yes. So, once upon a time, Charlemagne was actually referred to as Wendy's sidekick. He was her second mic on the Wendy Experience from 2006 to 2007 and befriended her as well as Kevin. In his book, Black Privilege, he divulges that he introduced Kevin Hunter to the infamous mistress, Sharina Hudson, which would ultimately lead to the demise of his marriage to Wendy. Charlemagne has credited his beef with Wendy Williams to her husband, Kevin Hunter, as he is not sure what the issue is. He said he's tried to reach out. He said that Kevin has shut all communication, or at one point had shut all communication off between them. And yeah, it seems like as we get into unraveling all of these, that yes, there are a bunch of key players in this. However, at the root of this is Kevin's greed, Kevin's want to control who she has around, or in her finances, all of that. But yeah, and also in 2007, this would have made Sharina 21 and Kevin 35, Wendy at 42, making her half her age.
Oh yeah.
And so, and like I don't doubt for a second that she knew that he introduced, even in the documentary that I saw over the weekend, she knew that Charlemagne introduced, or Sharina. She felt, my bad. Yeah, she felt that Charlemagne introduced Sharina to Kevin for some shady stuff, because he knew that Kevin couldn't keep it in his pants and knew that a 21-year-old would be, he would jump all over that. And the other plus is that Sharina and Charlemagne are from the same hometown in South Carolina.
They're both from South Carolina. I don't remember if it's the same hometown. Oh. But yes, they're both from South Carolina. He knew her as Nikki. He definitely knew her prior to working for Wendy, back from his being from South Carolina. He alleges that when Nikki first came around, she was interested in another person in the camp. That it was Kevin that, first of all, was angry, which is what he actually credits a lot of the beef with. Mad that he felt like Charlemagne put her on to a different guy when it was when he was in fact interested in her. Right. He alleged that Kevin and him, Kevin acted like a jealous lover when here she was, a young girl, came there with hopes of pursuing her dreams and hoping that Charlemagne could put her on. I mean, she came from South Carolina to New York at that time, pursuing modeling. Allegedly, that's what Wendy said. But she definitely came to be put on. She definitely came to try to pursue her dreams. And Charlemagne, being at that time Wendy's sidekick and working on the Wendy Williams Experience, being her homeboy from South Carolina, she thought he could, hook her up. And so hence that actually is how Sharina and Kevin met. And it was alleged that Kevin pursued Sharina. Sharina had interest in someone else in their camp.
Yes. I think his name was Wax, or his nickname was Wax.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So with that being stated, Kevin pursued her, lavished her with gifts and money. And thus the affair kicks off. It went on for 15 years before she basically found out everything and had eventually had enough. Many say that Wendy would have probably never left him had Sharina not gotten pregnant.
That was
I will agree. Certainly. You know, and that goes back to what Bria said with as long as the family structure was not broken, you know, Wendy constantly talked about her two Kevins. And again, that was home for her. You know, that was her safe space. Despite his behavior, you know, and it wasn't even just the fact of his infidelity with Sharina. It was also sometimes the way that he would act at her show or with her in business. He was very, like Bria said, controlling. And, you know, a lot of her producers on Wendy Williams have come forward and said that he was extremely difficult to be around, work with, that, you know, a lot of times that he made himself the star, coming into meetings late and holding up, you know, when they were getting ready to go over what they were going to be going to highlighting for that particular show and things that he would normally be a part of as being a producer on the show. It just became a lot.
Yeah. A power trip, ego trip.
Big time. You know, and this girl basically lived off of Wendy. I mean, it even came to the fact that he bought this woman a home 9 miles from their marital home in Livingston, New Jersey. Y'all, I mean, now let me just say that even if she thought she knew, you know, sometimes when you don't have all the details or you know something, but you personally don't go looking, because Kevin clearly split his time. I mean, you know, he vacationed with her. I mean, because the rumors were swirling for years before it came out. There were pictures that were dropped.
Yeah, he even made in a statement that he's just in love with both of them and he's trying to figure it out. Like literally, he's came out and admit that. But that's what happens when you let a man do that. I mean,
yeah,
you give them an inch and they're going to take a mile every time.
Yeah. But you know, the funny thing about that sort of thing, you know, when Wendy found out that Sharina was pregnant and it came out, even after that, she came on her show and at first she said, you know, that not to pay attention to what you hear in the internet or, you know, on social media, that she was in fact Mrs. Williams or Mrs. Hunter, and everything was good in Hunterville. She's Williams, but Mrs.
It was
Hunter.
like, what did she say? Until you see this gone, then you can start asking me questions.
Right. And she said all was well in Hunterville. And yeah. And we all knew that that wasn't the case.
And most women that, I feel like most women that talk like that, like I just see every single woman that talks like that. Well, maybe not every single one, but most of them, I just see them immediately like rushing out of the dress, like into their dressing room crying after every set. Like I feel like that is the biggest like
slap in your face.
Yeah.
I mean,
now you have literally this reminder for the rest of your life. Well, this was my bad. I'm getting ahead of myself right now.
No, actually you're not. You're not, because really and truly, what is known of Sharina basically is, we did tell you that she came on the scene by way of Charlemagne, who was working for Wendy Williams at the time as her sidekick on the Wendy Williams Experience radio show. That's how he got his big shot in radio. We all know that he's doing his thing on the Breakfast Club now, but he is very open and talks about it. And like Bria says, it is definitely in his book. There is not a lot known out there about her. If you were to look up Sharina Hudson, she's always going to be linked and known as Kevin Hunter's longtime mistress. That's just, it is what it is. And
I think I saw somewhere that she was a massage therapist, but that's literally
he paid. He used Wendy's money to pay for her to go to massage therapist school. Yes, that is noted. And that she considers herself currently on her Instagram as a fashion designer and a vegan guru and chef. So, child, I don't know. And Wendy threw shade at all of that. And listen, child, I get it. I mean, she's not going to look favorably on a woman that has laid down with her husband because Wendy and Kevin were married 22 years before her divorce was final. 15 of those years that we know of, he had an affair with Sharina Hudson. That doesn't speak volumes for their union. It just doesn't. And like I said, for her, I know that was extremely embarrassing. She kept a very brave face on her show. But I know that if you guys were loyal watchers or even watched it periodically, you could start to see a decline after that. She has not ever denied that she has struggled with substance abuse in the form of she's cocaine and she's substance abuse with alcohol and other things. But you started to see her decline affect the way she conducted her interviews. And then, of course, there were other things. She'd be in the Hot Topics chair, sometimes forgetting where she was in the midst of Hot Topics. And then the infamous show on Halloween where she collapsed and fainted. When her health started to be a concern to the viewers. She also, still within this era of time, as she was figuring out filing, because she did file for divorce in 2019. It did not become final until 2020. But she also went through a time when she was on the show and revealed that she had been living in a sober living facility. And I guess it was on the tail end of that where she had was getting ready to go home. Now, before we even get into all that, in the midst of the divorce, they sold their New Jersey mansion, and Wendy kept a home that she had in Florida. He was able to keep his 2 luxury cars, which was a Ferrari and something else. And let me see. Anyways, 2 luxury cars. And then, that's when Wendy started kind of doing her Wendy in the City. She got her, sexy apartment in Manhattan. And she wanted to give off the ideas that she was doing great living her single life. She talked about having a hot girl summer. She did her best to keep a brave face for the cameras. Yeah. And, but in the midst of that, there was just, like I said, a lot of issues. She started to go back to drinking heavily, and there were individuals that worked for the show that tried to work with it or whatever, but it was a major concern. And we all know that before she did her season where they had all the guest hosts, where she had taken some time for her health, is when a lot of things started to really kick off. Bria?
Yeah, I saw one report citing that they would have to text her at least 25 times before airing just to make sure that she was okay to film. And then they also wanted her to be cleared by a doctor, and she was never able to do that.
So
It
they
just
went through a time where they did a lot of reruns where they were trying to decide what to do.
right.
Yeah. And
Eventually, they just decided to wash their hands of it and made the 2022 was the last year aired. So,
and do you guys realize that her very last show on the Wendy Williams show was without her there? Kevin was very vocal in firing at the producers for doing that. He said it was a travesty. And he also has a lawsuit against the production company for the Wendy Williams show, which is Belmar Mercury. He thought he was wrongfully terminated. And honey, when you talk about legal stuff, let's wrap Kevin as much as we can and Sharina up as far as let's talk about the state of where they are now. And then, like I said, we're going to tie this all in, guys. So bear with us as we pull it all together for you guys, because this was a labor of love.
yes.
For you guys, because we didn't want to do the same old discussion of Wendy's fall from grace. You know, we wanted to add some layers to it to give you something to really think about. And so with Kevin, a part of the divorce decree, Kevin was awarded alimony, and Wendy had to pay him alimony, in which him and Sharina and their child lived off of. They bought a Florida mansion for $7.9. Almost $800,000 mansion in Florida. And at that time, he was pretty much living off of her money, off of his alimony money. They took trips. He tried to put money into Sharina's failed businesses. Nothing seemed to pop off. You know, the same synergy that he really wanted, that him and Wendy had as far as being successful in partnership and business, just didn't happen for him and Sharina. It wasn't there. I think once you took away the cool part of sneaking and living a double life, he was left with a small child and a woman that really wanted a certain lifestyle that on his own he couldn't get her. And prior to this, you know, Sharina has admitted that she'd asked Kevin many times to leave Wendy, and he was like, absolutely not. He would not leave Wendy. He needed Wendy to support his lifestyle. And hers.
Yes.
Right. So it was just a hot mess, y'all. And to this day, it is out there that Sharina is now suing Kevin for child support.
Absolutely. It is. It is.
Yes.
The law.
It's just the way it goes. Right.
Makes its rounds once again. It just makes its rounds once again.
And y'all, if you live long enough, honey, you will see it time and time again. It is the one thing that just gives and gives. And whichever side of the coin you're on when it comes to that, it is a real thing. Okay. And so with that being said, he ended up having to sell his home in Florida because after Wendy's money got frozen, the Wendy Williams show got canceled, and she did not have her funds were, like I said, not readily available to her. The alimony payment stopped. He went before a judge to plea to have them reinstated. The judge denied at this time. It's not an emergent thing until things get sorted out, if they ever do. And Wendy Williams said she had a clause in saying that she would continue those payments as long as she had an active show. Talk show, particularly.
Right.
She doesn't have that anymore. So good luck, Kevin. He had gotten behind. Yes, he went before the judge crying about being behind on his HOAs. They were about to foreclose. Credit card debt in exceedance of $20,000. So he was being sued by his credit card company. As well as he was in a lawsuit with his car insurance for saying said Ferrari was waterlogged. Child, the car insurance hired a meteorologist that stated that on the day that said car that he claimed he left at a friend's house with the top down, unbeknownst to him, it was raining so badly that it ruined the car. No, sir. The meteorologist stated that there was no rain on that day. Deny. And Miss Sharina, the reason she was with him in the first place was the lifestyle he could provide. He no longer can do that. She's not interested. So she is suing him for child support. I guess in hopes of whatever Kelvin gets, she will get a chunk of it for the remainder of her child's life or until her child is 18. And basically, he states that, he can't comply because for 3 years he's been unemployed and currently needs a hip replacement. Now, how's that for karma, guys?
It never misses a beat. Never misses a beat.
It does not.
Yes.
So we're going to move on to some more key players.
Right.
And keep in mind that throughout bouncing through these different key players, Kevin is always going to be somewhere around, because some of these people that worked for her formerly were, of course, working for both her and Kevin. We'll go to Mr. Bernie Young, who was a former manager. In 2022, which is when her show was canceled, Wendy fired him, and she fired him because allegedly she believed he was stealing from her.
Mm-hmm.
And
this was just add in. This was the manager that relieved Kevin of his manager.
Correct,
duty.
correct, because he did act as manager prior to when they were married. Amen. That's true. This is true. So he wasn't with her long, because in 2022 is when their divorce was final. Now, granted, they were apart from 2020 to 20. No, her divorce was final in 2020. So he would have worked for her for 2 years or somewhere in that between 2019 and 2022. Not too long. But she ended up firing him because she alleged that he was stealing from her. And with that, it was stated that he used her American Express card to pay for the hiring of one Carolyn Wolf at this powerhouse law firm, Abrams Finsterman LLP, to pursue guardianship over Williams and her Wells Fargo bank accounts, allegedly. Wendy went on her Instagram, and she talked about, she allegedly said, or she didn't allegedly say it, she said it, that, she in fact did fire Bernie for that. And she believed that he was filing a petition against her to get control of her money. He alleged that that was not the case, that he was trying to protect her, and that what he was doing was on the right side of protecting her. Bria, what did you find on Mr. Young?
Well, background, he, like his accolades, he's an Emmy award-winning producer, talent scout and manager. I think that's what I read. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like there were just so many people around that just wanted to take advantage of someone that was clearly hurting and feeling very bad. There was, I think that, because there was an event also or an episode where she was described as in like a catatonic state. He was there, refused to call the police, and was just kind of like, he actually called Kevin Hunter and was like, hey, I'm really not sure what's going on here. I don't want to call the cops. I think that she might be on her way out. I don't know. And so Kevin, he goes down there. Of course, he's in an interview. He lauds himself as, he does laud himself as her protector, as her, as the person who was there for her for 20, 30 years and just, knows her. And so he glorifies himself and says that, yeah, I got her out. Bernie didn't care if she lived or died. And so this is all a culmination of things that I feel like he saw. I think that he knew that Kevin was in her ear telling him, no, fire her. And so I think he did that to try to make himself like, or, get get his before he got axed.
I agree. I agree. Because it wasn't working.
No.
And, there was a couple times that she did contact Kevin for advice and or assistance throughout that time frame. He has been, I unwillingly give this to him, but he's been credited by folks in her camp for actually being that person that can deal with her, whereas in others did not know how to.
Right.
But when you've been with somebody for, married, 22 years, and been with someone since 94 to 2020. I mean, it's a long time.
That's a lifetime for somebody. Like,
absolutely. So, yeah, I don't doubt that he certainly knows her better than some of those folks in her inner circle, and knew how to navigate getting her to do things. She talked about how he would give her pep talks, even afterwards, about putting on a brave face and, getting the job done. Yeah, because, But anyway, child.
Yes.
We're gonna also talk about, so we just got done talking about Bernie Young, who we talked about him using her American Express card to try to retain an attorney to try to seek guardianship of Wendy and her bank account with Wells Fargo. So that leads us into Lori Schiller. Lori Schiller, who does have a ton of accolades. Bria, I'll let you talk to that. And then I'm going to talk to where she currently is now, how she feels about Wells Fargo, and where she stands on her position with her role in the guardianship with Wendy Williams.
Okay, so on her accolades, I don't have a lot, but I do know that she is the financial advisor for a financial advisor for Wells Fargo. She started working with her in 2018, her being Wendy, and basically in her background, she helps clients make sound investment decisions. And was very instrumental in the freezing of her Wells Fargo account. So in 2021, Wendy had, undergone treatment for Graves' disease. She had COVID, and the catatonic episode that we mentioned that Bernie witnessed and had to get Kevin and all involved. And so with all of this information that Lori presented to Wells Fargo deemed her as as an incapacitated person who could not manage their finances, resulting in a freeze on her account and her assets. And, she explicitly said she was of unsound mind and witnessed signs of exploitation, including Wendy Williams' own expressed apprehension about her close acquaintances, in my opinion, alluding to Kevin and maybe Kevin Jr.
Yeah. And basically, they said that she has known Wendy at the time of the report. And we're going to cite, there's several sources, TMZ, Page 6, OK Magazine, Essence. I will be citing all of the sources in this video that we've utilized to pull our facts together. But, Lori, because of Wendy is very unhappy about the freezing of her accounts, and rightfully so. Lori has kind of had to have armed security at her door. She has an 11-year-old daughter that they both fear for their life. They received death threats because Wendy's been very vocal about, it was Lori, because she is her financial advisor, that did definitely seek out the freezing of assets and, which led to the guardianship. Some say that it was simply out of, like Bria said, there was reportedly, allegedly, an incident where she went in the bank, a couple different incidences where it did seem that she was not of sound mind. And then the activity on her account made it appear that there was some financial exploitation. And so, it is not, and if you did your research on these matters, this is not something that is abnormal, particularly when you have someone. It's been stated that Wendy Williams had a $40 million account with Wells Fargo. So there's multiple layers there. So let's be clear. Wendy is, a big client. Now, she's a Wells Fargo client. Wells Fargo wants to keep her as a client with $40 million. And at the same token, it is to protect her and her fortune, but it had been stated too that Wendy had talked about moving her money. There's a lot of things that are in it. I won't say.
Oh yeah, no, and Wells Fargo, they haven't been known to be the most upstanding institution. I mean, they have not.
No. They were asked to, because Lori Schiller was basically saying that Wells Fargo, she's waiting for them to step up and support her in the fact that her decision was one that was based on, the on the thought that she was doing what was right for her client. They have yet to do so. They have paid for her security, but they have not publicly come forward to support Lori Schiller. And though she does not want to part ways with Wells Fargo, she has gone on record to say that, that it was Wells Fargo that pursued the guardianship, not her. She sought out to take the steps to do it, but it was Wells Fargo that directed her to do so. But that leads into, at the time, her attorney, LaShawn Thomas. LaShawn was Wendy Williams' former attorney. She is an African-American attorney. She also at the time, so she represented Wendy and Kevin. And so she comes into play as she talks about where they were involved in a heated dispute in a Florida branch of Wells Fargo. She had gone in the branch with Wendy, Kevin Jr., and what they were trying to do, because this was during the time that, so in the timeline, I'm trying to keep you guys abreast of where we're at. So we know that Wendy lost her show. We know that before she lost her show, she was struggling with some substance abuse and health issues. She had been in and out of rehab a few times. And this is around the time that Kevin Jr. came and gave her an ultimatum. And she was in Florida getting treatment under, the same place that allegedly she had sent Kevin Jr. when she had talked about him having an issue on her show when he was a teenager. It was a wellness place. And at this point, she was really doing good, they said. So while in Florida, it was Kevin Jr.'s desire that she get set up with online banking while she was in Florida. And it was her attorney, LaShawn Thomas's mission to assist Wendy, because Wendy wanted copies of her bank statements. They were being sent directly to her place in New York. She was unable to retrieve them. But gosh, in this day and age, online banking, you would think Wendy, but you know what? I guess when you are at that level, you're so far removed for the day-to-day transactions of your accounts, because you have accounts, you have people that handle that.
That do that.
Right. So as crazy as it sounds to me, because I cannot fathom not being able to see what's going on with my bank account. But child, so what happened, or what allegedly happened, was they went into a Florida branch and Wendy demanded to see her statements, her bank statements. And at the same time, like I said, Kevin Jr. wanted to see if she could be set up with online banking. They told them that this was a retail branch, and so they could not do that at that particular branch. However, they did contact a bigger brokerage or a corporate branch that was, I guess, the home branch that took care of Wendy's account in New York. And that is when Miss Lori Schiller, that we just told you about, came onto the phone. And Lori at that time said, you know, she was Wendy's longtime financial advisor. And she said that she would talk to Wendy regarding her account, her statements, thus and though, but she would not do so in the presence of anyone else. She would solely only talk to Wendy. And Wendy was not cool with that. She basically said, now look, I want my attorney present. Now, this was all alleged by LaShawn Thomas, by the way. Mm-hmm. However, let me just say that Wells Fargo did corroborate her story. So there's that. So basically, Lori was on the phone and wanted to talk to her, but would not talk to her in the presence of anyone else, only her. She wanted her attorney present. Lori was like, I will not do that. And so Wendy was like, well, if I can't have at least my attorney present, forget it. And so they said that basically they walked out empty-handed. At that point, she was fired, but Attorney Thomas made this statement, and it goes like this. To be clear, there was never a conflict of interest. The judge and Wells Fargo did not want me on the case, and this was a case regarding her guardianship, because I couldn't be bought. I would never stand by and watch my client be taken advantage of. So they did everything to get me out of the picture, and to include threats to report me to the Florida bar if I communicated with my client. She thinks the goal was to get Wendy back to New York so that she could be controlled. And, you know, anyone that knew Wendy knew that she was doing better in Florida. She reported that Wendy was having, you know, conversations that were clear-headed, and that she was clearly in a better frame of mind. She reported that she's been isolated, and she did everything in her power to assist Wendy, but she alleges the courts have blocked her attempts to contact Wendy, and she's been threatened to be sanctioned if she did in fact talk to Wendy. So she says they clearly don't want to see a healthy Wendy. Of course, Wells Fargo denies these allegations. Now, the thing with this is, guys, I don't, and then we're going to get into Sabrina Morrissey, who is appointed by the courts to be her guardian, to oversee the guardianship. I'm not an expert on this, but I do know that, you know, we've also heard of Britney Spears with her conservatorship, which is different simply because a family member was deemed that versus a court appointed, which was right. So when the court appoints someone like Sabrina Morrissey, that's an attorney that just supposed to be the go-between between Wendy and Wells Fargo. And anybody that's an outside entity that would require any kind of payment outside of the normal, her bills and things. And so, okay, so let's go back to Ms. Thomas. Ms. Thomas was also on the record stating that she gives credit to Kevin Hunter and said that, you know, he had done things that were in Miss Williams' best interest as well. So some of these people were around when they were married, and I'm not certain that their loyalties don't lie with Kevin Hunter. It just seems like it's just unfortunate that it's gotten to this point. There is also stated that a guardianship can be overturned if said person, you know, can show proof that they are back in sound mind and able to take on their finances, because it's Wendy's desire that even if she had someone else take care of her stuff, that she wanted to hire her people to do so. She's very frustrated and angry regarding this. She basically feels like, and you'll see as we've shown you the clip, that she feels like she's out of money, that she doesn't have any. I think what's more accurate is that she doesn't have access to her money.
Yes.
Yeah. So that brings us to Sabrina Morrissey. And Bria, stop me if there's something that I have omitted that you would like to add for the discussion?
No, I don't quite have anything to add. Yeah.
Okay.
I think everything, yeah.
Well, within the same realm of we're talking about the guardianship, Sabrina Morrissey she is a New York lawyer that was appointed by the court to be the guardianship over Wendy Williams' financial estate. And according to OK Magazine, she's ordered to help manage her $40 million fortune. She specializes in estate administration, guardianships, and litigation. And after Wells Fargo froze Williams' account, suspecting she was the victim of financial exploitation, dementia, or undue influence, it was Miss Morrissey that they deemed responsible for said guardianship. And I have questions too on what legally, what gives a bank the authority to state when someone is considered. Now, the financial exploitation, there could certainly be activity that would allege to that, but there would still have to be proof. And, to say dementia or undue influence without some sort of documentation from a doctor or, it's just, what do you think, Bria? I mean, I find that to be a bit out there to think that. And don't get me wrong, she certainly has shown, you can go back and see some interviews and some of her out and about that certainly does not paint her in the best light as being okay. But
I think, honestly, the Lori Schiller character, I don't think that she's telling the complete truth.
I don't either.
It's very telling that Wells Fargo came out and backed or corroborated LaShawn Thomas's story, but did not hers.
That's true.
And like I said, it seems that Bernie and Lori were around at the same time, and that these characters work together in order to
get to where we're at. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's layers to this, guys. There's layers to this.
And I think, or I hope, that more comes out about Lori Schiller and Bernie Young, because I do believe that they have a huge hand in all of this. Yes. And the Sabrina Morrissey character, she has a lot of accolades. She's seemingly great at what she does. She has cut off Kevin and Kevin Jr. from receiving any of her fortune. And the only people who are getting their payments are herself and Will Selby. And I think maybe
Kevin Jr. has alleged and come out and stated that that they're in cahoots. And that does bring us to our last shady character in the undoing of Miss Wendy Williams, Mr. Will Selby, y'all. He is Wendy's jeweler turned manager. He's a former CAD graphic supervisor of a major engineering company in New York City, the CEO of media management. And he was the one that gave her the jewels that she displayed in her infamous video on TMZ when she was trying to promote the podcast that he had he had worked with her on saying that they were going to actually do together. So in 2020, Wendy decided on an episode of the Wendy Williams show to address, there was some buzz that Will Selby was her love interest, not just her manager or jeweler, because there were pictures floating around social media of the two of them kind of booed up. I'm going to show you guys one picture. And that particular night, she addresses on the Wendy Williams show, and she says that that the two were not dating, that Will, aka Big Will, was her jeweler, and she opted to spend time with him, where one pic caused, social media buzz. And the two of them were together at a studio session for a musician called Black Poppy. They posted a pic on Instagram where the two looked very cozy. She was leaning up on him, he was leaning over her, where she herself admits she was dressed in a brown negligee and a fur coat. And shortly after that, because she said that they weren't dating, but she very much enjoyed his time. After that, she asked him to be her manager, which he agreed. And it was him that had the idea to do the podcast. Yes. There's been controversy between Selby and Kevin Jr., like we were telling you. Kevin Jr. did an article with U.S. Sun magazine, where he expressed his concern that his mom was being taken advantage of. After being placed under guardianship in 2022, her son that said that the guardianship exacerbated both the decline of her mental and physical health, and that members of her inner circle at the time were trying to profit from her ongoing projects. Her son also stated work should not be her focus, and he considered that, considering her struggles with alcoholism. Will Selby refutes that, and saying that her being under the guardianship is what kept the money situation, that he couldn't take her money or take advantage of her money because of the fact of being under guardianship. Though Kevin Jr. alleges that Sabrina Morrissey and Will Selby are alleged friends, Selby denies that, and he says that he was helping Wendy do what she loves, which was working, and the podcast was her idea, but it has not happened as of to date. And y'all, Will Selby did an interview on Angela Yee's podcast, Way Up, where he seemingly was very flippant. Oh, by the way, he shouts out Kevin Hunter too, saying, Kevin was a good guy to put up with Wendy, because now with him doing what he's doing for her, he sees all that Kevin did. Child, he just seems to be a very seedy character, out for gain. The whole thing, a lot of the family members also said they were really surprised to see Kevin Jr. in the trailer, because Kevin just was 100% to the fact that he did not want any parts of it, because he did not believe it was going to show his mother in a good light. According to the trailer, he was right. I don't know if he was promised that wasn't the case. Child, I don't know.
Right.
But yeah. But it is Will that has a hand in her doing this. Some people say she had a contractual agreement with Lifetime. I know that she had projects in, and that was just one. And because Kevin had mentioned in previous interviews that his mom was working on an unscripted project, which is what we're going to be witnessing at the end of February. We're going to wrap this one up. I think we're going to do a part 2 on this. So guys, look out next week. Next Saturday, we're going to do part 2. Even if it doesn't take our whole segment, we're going to wrap up some of this. But for the sake of time, we're going to stop here and just say that it does appear that there are people that are intertwined in ways in which that Wendy's best interest is not really being looked after. We're going to give you guys more information on the guardianship and Mr. Will Selby. Yeah, I think particularly when we get a chance to see the 2-part docuseries, it's going to shed a lot of light on where he stands. And we'll get into some of the scenes next time. We won't do it on this time. But I also want to state that there was last week a interview with Miss Jones, where she is also a radio personality that's good friends with Wendy Williams, who had stated that she had gone by Wendy's New York apartment to visit with her, only to find that her neighbors said that she had gone back to Florida to be with her family. We hope that is true. They said that she was doing well for a while, but then she got sick again. And so as of last that we've heard, she is with her family in Florida. And we certainly wish Wendy well. Bria, do you have anything else you want to add?
I do wish her well also. I hope that after all of this settles, that she can just get somewhere and rest and, you know, just, and like Charlemagne and her son said, I think that she's done enough. I think that work has spanned and speaks for itself. And I think that she needs to just settle down and enjoy retirement and just
and heal.
Yes, and heal. And heal.
And heal. I agree. So guys, we're going to end here. And like I said, check back with us. As you know, we'll be back on Monday for recap Married in Medicine, Thursday for the recap of Married at First Sight Denver, and then Saturday we will do part 2 of the Undoing of Wendy Williams. Guys, put in the comments what you think. What are your thoughts on what we discussed today, on the key players of the Undoing of Wendy? Just let us know what you're thinking. Put it in the comments and we'll be back. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for bearing with us and waiting an extra night for us to bring this to you. We have more to unpack. Thank you guys. Come back with us next week. As always, to our subscribers, Bria.
All right. I see you. I love you. I'm grateful and I'm thankful for you. Bye.
Bye. Good night, guys.